Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to create static timestamps of start and end dates. So what does that mean? Let's say you're doing some project management and you're using Excel as a project management tool or your pseudo project management tool, and you want to have some actual start dates. And you don't want to manually enter these in. You want to have these entered in if the completion or if another cell has some value. So we're going to use this completion column with the cells that have values. Let's say that I have an estimated start date of 12/15/2020, and then I actually started it, and I say, oh, I'm 10% started, or I'm 10% complete, and it fills out the start date of the date, which is today's date, 12/21/2020. And if I change it, I don't want that start date to change. I want that to stay consistent. I want it to say, let's say it's now 50% complete. That shouldn't change. That should still stay there. Now let's say my end date, let's say that I actually got to 100% complete. That end date should fill out, and I fill out end date of 12/21. Now, if it really wasn't complete, we had 99% complete. That shouldn't change, but that should disappear, right? So that shouldn't be there at all. So let's see how we can create something like this. So here I'm in a new worksheet. I just copied over the headers here just for example. And I'm just going to use the first one. I'll just call this task 1. And then the start date, I'll do the same thing I did earlier, 12/15/2020. Completion, I'll leave that blank. Status, I'll leave that blank, and I'll leave these blank. Now let's start with the actual start date. Let's use this particular formula. And it's going to be a recursive calculation formula or iterative calculation type of formula. Basically, it's calling on itself to calculate something. So an analogy would be like if you had an empty wallet and you had $100 in your hand. It was a magic empty wallet, and you put the $100 into the wallet, close it, and open it back up, and it's going to add an extra $100 to you. So now you have $200, and then you got to take $100 out, and then you put it back into the wallet, close it, and it's going to add another $100. And then when you open your wallet again, it's going to have $300. Of course, that's magic. That's basically a recursive calculation. And usually it's not a good idea to have that turned on in Excel, but in this case, it might be okay. And so what we need to do is do the recursive calculation with these nested group of if formulas. So type in if, open parentheses. We're going to change this. Look at that cell and see if there's a change in there. Select C2. I'll just type C2. And if it does not equal blank, comma, if that's true, then we want to have another if statement. So what we're saying here, this is the recursive part now. Now we're going to say E2, it's going to equal blank. If it doesn't, then bring back today's date, comma, E2, and then close parentheses, close that internal if statement, comma, and then blank, close parentheses, press enter, and it's not going to work initially because we don't have the setting turned on. So if I type 10%, press enter, it's going to say, oh, there's a circular reference, and you can't do that. So what we need to do is we need to change it. So what we need to do is we need to go into File and then Options and change the formula settings. So let's get in there. Now we go to Options, and under Formulas, we need to change that. Enable iterative calculation. Let's just put it at 1. Click OK. And now you can see we have a value here. Let's turn that into a date. It's at general right now. Turn that into a date, and then now we have the ability to calculate recursive calculations or iterative calculations. And so if I change this to 20%, then it's not going to, this should not do anything. Press enter. It's not going to do anything, right? And we've got a start date here. We can actually do the same thing with our end date. It's very similar, but it's a different calculation. I can do if, open parentheses, if cell C2 equals 1, which is 100%, then use my other nested if formula. This is where the recursive part comes into play. If F2 equals blank, then today. Bring back today's date, comma, otherwise F2. because if there's already a date in there, it's just going to bring back itself from earlier. So close that, close parentheses, comma, double quotes, close parentheses, press enter. That's going to be blank if I turn this into 100%. Now this part's going to get filled out, and I need to change that to date, and it'll give today's date. Now that status, basically it's just a couple other if-then statements. This is not recursive, so if I do if cell B, let's see, here I'll say if cell C2 is greater than 0, then my other if statement starts to open up and says if cell C2 equals 1, then completed, otherwise in progress, close parentheses, comma, open quote, close parentheses, press enter. So 100% is completed, 99% it should turn into in progress, and that should disappear. If it's deleted, now this is one thing that is a caveat for this. If we press the delete button, the start date's going to delete there. So that's the one caveat. So, but the assumption is that if you're doing project management, you really don't go from, for the most part, you really don't go from anything above 10% to 0% when you started a task. That task is started, maybe it's ended at that point, but you don't really, most of the time, you really don't go back. You did start something, it just didn't really end. So that's a way that we can create a static timestamp with start and end dates using Excel. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.